The curious world of a private librarian.
You call him in and you tell him what your interests are, and he will go and scour the globe to get you these books.
We'll take all of this off here.
As you get to know a person's library, you get to know them very, very well.
A book lover could spend a lot of time in the Brooklyn Heights home of book dealer Kurt Thometz. He's also a private librarian and author. There are books everywhere in his house. Even the kitchen is filled with hundreds of his wife's cookbooks.
A private library, a personal library, I think of it as an act of style. It's a perfect reflection of the collector. You know, books have interiors like people. And as you get to know a person's library, you get to know them very, very well.
Kurt earns his living curating private libraries. His clients include Mrs. Vincent Astor, the Lauder family, Calvin Klein, Diane von Furstenberg, and many others.
My first job was for Diana Vreeland, the Empress of Fashion, who had left Vogue and was working as the curator of the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Art Museum. And Mrs. Vreeland relied heavily on her library. Well, I came and I put it in nice order, and she and I became great friends. She was my surrogate grandma, I often thought. And she spoke me up.
He taught himself, in effect. He was working in bookstores, but there was no such thing as a private librarian. And he invented it and started it completely sui generis. He is the private librarian.
Kurt's a guy like a book doctor. You call him in and you tell him what your interests are, and he will go and scour the globe to get you these books, whether they're, you know, rare first editions or they're some kind of trashy paperback, if that's your style or what you need.
We're gonna go see Francois Villon Scott VI, my bookbinder and conservator. Hey, Francois.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, man, how you doing?
I'm great.
Don't have to resew or anything.
Usually when people bring books to me, they're books that they treasure very highly. All you have to do is remove all of this. We'll take all of this off here. Kurt brings books that from his clientele, and usually there are all kinds of books. Some people collect old paper-bound detective stories that are starting to fall apart, and he may occasionally bring me one of those. But usually they're a better grade book.
My definition of a bibliophile is a book lover, you know, and even a book addict, maybe. And that's definitely what Kurt is. I know people generally think of it as having to do with some sort of 19th century British, you know, novel of manners idea. And that, of course, was true then, you know. But this is the upside of democracy, is that someone like Kurt or someone like me becomes a bibliophile because you love to read and you love books.
No, I don't dog-ear the
No
dictionary.
cares?
No, and I don't annotate.
What's this here? Here's something.
Book love is at the real heart of collecting. It can be something terribly precious, or it needn't be precious at all to be collectible. There are people who want, you know, an inscribed Nancy Mitford to go with the chintz, and there are people like my client John Galino.
Kurt Thometz is a very dear friend, and he's helped me not only amass the collection, but catalog and assemble the collection. For example, here's an original James Bond first edition by Ian Fleming called Diamonds Are Forever, and these books have become exceedingly rare because they were popular literature, and again, being popular literature, people didn't keep them and threw them out. And the original publications weren't that great until the film series became so popular. So they're very rare, very expensive.
When I collect, I collect pamphletry from Africa that I came across in my book searches back in the 70s. A pamphlet came my way in a bookstore that specialized in African literature, and I picked one up off the floor and found myself immediately pulled into it.
These pamphlets are the first documents of Nigerians writing, thinking, speaking in English, and it's immensely important.
A compilation of 18 pamphlets from Kurt's collection is called Life Turns Man Up and Down, High Life, Useful Advice, and Mad English.
The stories in the book are really relevant because it's a great look at really important African country and people, the most populous country in Africa, and also one of the wealthiest, as they begin to shake that yoke of colonialism and to understand, you know, who the people were at that point in time.
And these aren't great works of literature, but they are very authentic, you know, reflections of people.
Well, let me read a passage, starting with chapter 1, The Dazzling Beauty of Rosemary. If there was a prize to be awarded for falling in love at first blush, Rosemary should be given the richest golden medal.
The small eclectic bookshop where Kurt found his pamphlets has closed its doors, just like many of the rare and used bookstores in Greenwich Village.
So many of my cronies are out of business. Particularly in the early to mid-90s, there were many bankruptcies and suicides as a result of the technological change in the business. So all those little individualities that you'll find in a second-hand bookstore that was somebody else's passion before yours, it gave the book yet more personality. And this I find rapidly, quickly becoming a thing of the past, and myself a dinosaur.
I hope that there is a future for this kind of work that he does. I don't suppose that at this time, with the way the world is, people are making a big deal of their private libraries, but you know, they will always be around. There will always be book lovers around.
I hope to keep on. I think there are people out there that can use me and will invite me into their passions, as it's been one of the greatest loves of my life.